Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I present to you another video with Barbra Perkins, Christy Graham and Peggy Peterson as they deliver three different views on the climate change narrative which is currently sweeping the Western Hemisphere. It's a great listen. I advise you and encourage you to listen to all of it. They're very eloquently rebutted and tell me what you think. It's about half an hour and I'd love to know your views in the comments. Enjoy it, put the kettle on, have a coffee, sit down and relax and listen to three feisty women give their fantastic viewpoints on what's going on. Bye for now.
So the next item, we have Barbra Perkins and Christy Graham from Muskoka Canadians for the Truth. Climate Emergency Declaration and Environment and Climate Change Committee. So Barb and Christine, if you wouldn't mind joining us, that would be fantastic. There they are, right there. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm supposed to say, Chris, you can start the clock because Chris is doing that over there.
Would you stop the clock between us? Just because we have 10 minutes between us?
Yeah, you shared. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we will, absolutely. And maybe he started, we'll give you an extra few seconds because I started before you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Barbra Perkins, and this is not about climate change. This is about conformity, acceptance of only one narrative, and control. The climate change narrative is being used as a tool by our government in conjunction with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, UN, WHO, and all their branches to usher in a new world order, a one world government, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, all of which are different names for the same thing. The model that's being used is based on the Chinese Communist Party. Consider these quotes, will you? Former Czech President Václav Klaus, who lived under a totalitarian regime, said, "As someone who lived under communism for the most of his life, I feel obliged to say that I see the biggest threat to freedom, democracy, the market economy, and prosperity now in ambitious environmentalism, not in communism. This ideology wants to replace the free and spontaneous evolution of mankind by a sort of central, now global planning." In 1968, the Club of Rome members stated their belief that humanity requires a common motivation, namely a common adversary, in order to realize their goal of world government. They chose the threat of environmental catastrophe. Dr. Ottoman Edenhofer, co-chair of UN IPCC, Working Group 3, "One must free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. What we are doing has almost nothing to do with the climate. We must state clearly that we use climate policy de facto to redistribute the world's wealth. Climate policy has almost nothing to do anymore with protecting the environment." It's important for us to realize how climate change is being used against us. The climate change narrative is a tool to create fear and anxiety. You see, when our brain is fearful and anxious, our logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down, and we make choices based more on the emotional part of the brain. We look for relief from the discomfort of fear and anxiety. Of course, then we are open to thoughts, solutions presented conveniently to us by our government, and presented in such a way to believe that it is for our own good. Then we accept those solutions and we adopt them as our own, trusting the selected experts. We stop thinking and searching for ourselves. We accept the narrative, which is repeated non-stop, whether it's climate change, pandemics, or other apparent crises. Even though the solutions are presented as for your own good, the common good, to keep us safe, when looked at objectively without fear and anxiety, you will recognize, in reality, it is a means to get complete control. We are being played. We are. And I hope that you will take this opportunity to step back from fear, have the courage to pull back that curtain and ask hard, scary questions and seek more information from other sources than the mainstream media or from whom you are told are the experts. There are many other experts. Open your minds. Man's been able to adapt to climate, which has been changing since the beginning of time, and we can too. I know you can do it. I know we can do it. We don't have to sacrifice our rights and freedoms to the global elites. We have each other. One last quote from the Club of Rome. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortage, famine, and the like would fit the bill. Think about it.
Thank you for that, Christine.
Good morning. My name is Christy Graham, and I represent Muskoka Canadians for Truth. We are a small but growing group of extremely concerned taxpayers. I'm not here to talk about climate science today. Peggy will be doing that after me, and Barb informed you of the United Nations Agenda Takeover. I'm here to tell you we aren't hearing the full story. First, let me be clear, I'm not a climate denier. I am, however, a climate change skeptic, as we all should be, especially when it comes to the UN declaration of a climate change emergency. I'm also just a woman with some research and some critical thinking skills. And I will say that I know for sure there is definitely another side to the climate change story. However, in June 2021, a UN climate change emergency was declared based on hearing just one side. A simple Google search or trip to Amazon for one of many hundreds of books on the subject reveals there are countless well-credentialed scientists and experts who have a whole other side to the story and have debunked the science and the questionable models. For example, I have here a World Climate Declaration from over 1,800 credentialed scientists and academics, 54 pages of signatories that declare there is no climate emergency. So why has our mayor and council stampeded down this agenda and spending path on climate change when it's clear you haven't heard the scientific data that categorically refutes a climate change catastrophe in any kind of public forum or debate? Similarly, with the survey that I believe is being presented today, you've asked only specifically on the issue of climate change. You haven't heard what the people really care about. What I feel we need to talk about today is the feedback we've received from the community and taxpayers. Your survey says that 65% think local governments should spend more tax money on climate change initiatives, but that's not what our findings show. We posted our petition online and stood outside of businesses. Some took copies to keep on their counters for local taxpayers to sign. We never expected to get so much feedback. People are really, really upset about these tax rates. People are really suffering. And for some, this tax increase would put them over the edge. So even if tackling global warming and sea levels rising in 50 years was an emergency, although we know it's not, these are not their top priorities. That is just not the case. Most, if not all, of the local people just want to feed their families and keep their homes. Many people will be upset that you would even consider important decisions affecting all residents and their future, surveying a very small sample of the local community, who were given a handful of questions, all predisposed to the media climate change narrative. Here's some of the comments from taxpayers and business owners, and I'm quoting here. Number 1, I got a measly 3% increase at work, and your councillors got double-digit. So many on the sunshine list. Number 2, the climate narrative is to keep people in fear. Kids are so depressed already. The suicide rate among the youth has tripled over the last 4 years, and it's even higher in Northern Ontario. How is pushing this apocalyptic narrative contributing to this, I ask? 3, no to any more climate change money. I can barely afford groceries, and the science never made sense, especially electric vehicles. Just won't work up here in the winter. Number 4.
Christine, can I let you know you have 1 minute left?
Okay, thank you. I'm all for protecting nature, but this global climate change debacle, that's just throwing money into an endless money pit. 5, I thought local taxes were supposed to be spent on local services. 6, we don't need higher taxes. We need a public independent audit to identify exactly where our property taxes are going. Number 7, where are the climate change items in the budget? I can't find them, although it's mentioned many times in the report. Shouldn't you do some kind of cost-benefit analysis before you can spend taxpayer money? And here are my requests. We rely on you, and if you're spending taxpayer dollars, you need to verify the science you're relying on, and we will provide you with our sources. And you need to show some kind of cost-benefit analysis before committing any more tax money. We, the public, ask that you put this climate change agenda and all funding and partnerships on hold until all sides can be heard. In the meantime, our petition will continue to be circulated. You need to listen to get the whole story, both on the climate change issue as well as what people are really saying. They pay your salaries. But more importantly, we need to resolve this, and we want to help you. From what we witness out here, no one seems to have any control of spending, and our beautiful town is going broke.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Thank you both for that. Are there questions from council of either Barb or Christine? Okay. I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much for your deputation. Okay, with that, we have a third deputation. Peggy Peterson is going to also speak about climate change, our climate change action plan. And in fact, it's a rebuttal. Welcome, Peggy. Should we start the clock now, Peggy?
Just one moment.
Okay.
I would like to formally request an extension of 2 minutes. I have quite a bit of information, and I do require 12
2
minutes.
minutes.
Yes, thank you. I shouldn't need it, but just in case.
I know.
Okay. Go ahead. I am directing this deputation to the Mayor and Council. However, I am especially grateful for each and every one of you for being here, regardless of where you find yourself on the climate change emergency fence. I was unaware until January just how dedicated the town of Huntsville and the District of Muskoka were to the United Nations Agenda 21 and ultimately Agenda 2030. I received a copy of your climate change emergency as declared by the Corporation of the Town of Huntsville on June 28, 2021. Then I attended your January Environment and Climate Change Committee meeting and witnessed the presentation of a town employee concerning a 10-year climate action plan as part of the 2024 process. A plan so involved and consuming that there is no way to really price it out. It became clear that all of you were believing in the climate change hoax. It is a complete lie, and it's easy to prove with basic science. We came here today to help you to understand the lie and expose the fraud behind the threat of a climate emergency. I also want you to acknowledge that you are someone who is convinced that the world is at risk and humanity is in peril. It is very important that you allow your mind and your heart to hear what we are saying. The good news is the planet is just fine. I could get into the details of why this has happened, but I will just say there were a group of globalists pushing these agendas, and I'm going to refer to them into this presentation. This agenda was created by people who want the earth for themselves. They will do anything to get it, including lying to you about a climate change emergency. I'm speaking again for the third time to this council about the United Nations and its international affiliates' control. There's a spider web of lies and carefully crafted, the quiet takeover of every level of government, including the town of Huntsville. And even though they are not elected by anyone, the federal government got us into this deal. We were signed up with Agenda 21 by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney in 1992. He sold us out to the people behind this agenda. Our lawful government was redesigned by a document called the Municipal Primer in 1994 that told Canada what to do and when to do it. No one did the research. No one did due diligence before going along with it. This primer also created the 17 sustainability goals you'll see in all the doctrine. This information has already been shared with many of you, but it is important to put this into context for this meeting. As you consider making energetic and financial expenses to a town with too many good people who cannot afford groceries, I am hoping to reach the youth so we can give them a much better forecast for the planet. I have all the evidence to prove this climate change agenda is not only a big fat lie to suit these control freaks, it is also a massive action to control us, silence us, and censor the truth. These people were able to get away with all of this untrue propaganda because the same people own our media. And all of it pushes net zero and put out a false narrative that we are facing extinction due to high CO2 levels. So we're going to start the science lesson. CO2 is the gas of life. This is proven during the process of photosynthesis, something we all learned about in public school science. Carbon sequester is the result of green things like trees and grass absorbing CO2 from the air. The process separates the carbon molecule from the oxygen molecules. The green things exhale the oxygen for living things like humans and dogs, and they absorb the carbon and sequester it in the earth. Net zero makes no sense when you understand the science. Their propaganda has been incredible. It has convinced so many good people who interfere over something that does not exist. The planet is fine. Humanity is fine. The polar bears are fine. In fact, there are 7 times the number since measured in 1942. The polar caps are the thickest they have been in 21 years. The planet is actually in a measurable CO2 drought and actually needs more of it, since CO2 is what creates all green growth. It's easy to measure with real science. The entire planetary green biomass is expanding everywhere, except in the clear cuts of South America, because they are destroying the source of the biomass with horrendous destruction of the rainforests. More destruction by the same agenda. The sea levels have been stable to within 1 millimeter over the past 21 years. The temperature of the planet has not changed in 18 years, and climate-related deaths have been plummeting forever and reflect the lowest level in recorded history. Also, a consequence of abundant photosynthesis is the sequester of carbon. And here's another big lie for you to know. The sequester of this carbon captured by green things during photosynthesis and other natural products of the earth biology and the primordial ooze that creates this creates all of the oil and gas in the world. Oil and gas were falsely called fossil fuels to trick you into thinking they were scarce, even though they are the natural production and effluent and are constantly being produced by our sentient planet. I have more good news. Free energy will be available very soon to heat our homes. Everyone will soon be aware of these technologies that were available to people over 100 years ago. They were stolen, these technologies, by the same people behind this agenda. Free energy is very real. Nikola Tesla proved it clearly. However, when the oil barons realized that we could have free energy and we did not need to buy their products and depend on petroleum products, they destroyed him and hid his technology. And guess what? Hydrogen will replace oil in our combustible engines. All it does spit out is water. The good guys already have the technologies ready, and we'll see the entire transformation of our power grid over the next 5 years. So everyone can relax a little, and please stop being afraid. We need to ensure the youth get this message. The constant fear-mongering on issues like our impending doom is sending them into some serious health challenges. We need to reassure them that everything is okay and that we will fix all of this. I know that humanity is clearly on the way to recover, and it needs to start with us at home here in Huntsville. Let's all take a collective deep breath.
Thank you, Peggy.
Oh, I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Sorry. No. The world of truthers is currently exposing the globalists behind the agendas, and we are in the process of removing any power they have over us in Huntsville. I hope we were able to change your minds about the state of the world. That would be amazing. And if we have convinced you to look into the facts for yourself and consider we were correct, please connect with us. We will be happy to help. We want to plant the few seeds of doubt in this garden of climate change. I also want to take this moment to thank the Muskoka Climate Action members who are here today. I recognize your passion to help save the world. Your dedication is very genuine. I cannot imagine how much your support would mean in exposing this agenda for what it was. We all need to see justice done for a clear and obvious crime against humanity for all who were involved in creating so much fear and creating so much chaos. The world does not need to be saved. She is a sentient and living entity who is working with us to remove this blight on society. Let's all pray for all the help we can find to sort this mess and right this ship. There are action items, and the first one is to collectively stop the global weather modification and manipulation. Stop the geoengine chemtrails in our skies. No more harmful frequencies from the massive amount of electromagnetic towers in our forests and neighborhoods. We have to help to stop the United Nations, the WF, and the WHO, and I pray that once you begin to understand you have been misled, you'll see the truth. There are many issues that have been lied to about. Climate change is just one small part of the plan to weaken humanity and deny us our health, wealth, and happiness. In 2020, they started taking our freedoms with mandates and lockdowns, false tests, all complements of the same agenda. Medical tyranny at the highest level, forcing experimental vaccines, even though there was no evidence these forced injections were either safe or effective. I am sorry about all this. I know you might be still very concerned. We are all concerned about our future. One thing we know for sure, we cannot leave this mess for next generations. We owe them to put our differences aside and work together to make Huntsville the best place for all of us. As a person of faith, I believe that once you see the truth everywhere you look, it'll become clear that you've been seriously misled. However, what counts from this day forward is how do we fix this? We work together. We care for each other like in earlier times. That is why we are calling Huntsville home. We hope you to do your own research. We can suggest some articles. I'm a big fan of Druthers, our national monthly newsletter. It's a great source of information and research, and if you're looking for the truth in Canada, everything's there. Big thanks to Sean and the crew for all they do to get the word out. Please do the research. The truth means you do not have the weight of the world on your shoulders anymore. You can relax, take a breath, smell the hyacinths, and then hopefully you will join us locally in our effort to make things right. There is no climate emergency. Humanity is fine. Our efforts to stop the contaminated chemtrails from filling our skies every day over this town for the past 15 years, and the geoengineering programs designed by the UN-related agencies, we need your help. They've been spraying us like bugs with metals and chemicals, and who knows what else. They fill our skies with harmful frequencies from the massive cell towers, filling our forests and littering our skies with networks of dangerous electromagnetic radiation for the cell towers. Electromagnetic radiation harms all life.
Peggy,
Your phones are all emitting it. All compliments of the agenda.
Minute.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. The United Nations know how to control the weather with these technologies. They can make Cat 2 hurricanes into Cat 5 with a dial. Weather as a weapon is very real, so any concern about natural storms getting worse is another part of the big lie, all controlled by the same people. They can create droughts and floods and fires and earthquakes. These horrible people are using the weather as a weapon the world, killing millions. We have no idea what our climate really is until we stop them and allow the Earth's skies to recover from the contamination and the altered frequencies. Think about that. When was the last time you had to clean the bugs off your windshield? Powerful propaganda, well-financed, well-planned, well-hidden. Part of the push to control local emissions is the local traffic in this tourist town wants to invest money and energy into promoting the expansion and the use of electric vehicles. It's a grave error, serious threat to our fragile tourist economy. How can tourists get here if we stop allowing cars? Our emissions make no difference. And we also have to consider the safety of the EV
I just
charges.
want to let you know your 12 minutes is up.
Okay. We cannot, as a town, be thinking of being a 15-minute city. Tourism is our livelihood. Let's think about that. Climate change is a hoax. We can relax and take a breath. You might not believe anything I said, and I'm sorry.
Peggy, can you just wrap up
my
the last sentence, please?
I formally asked the mayor to stop all activities. I formally asked the mayor to stop all activities related to climate change and all funding in the 2022 budget. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Peggy. So, thank you. Again, I will ask Councillor Stone.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate you have your opinion on this matter. For those of us who do believe the climate is changing, we are acting not out of fear, but out of prudence. And this council doesn't spend wildly towards those efforts. So my question to you is, what's the harm? What's the harm if we encourage the reduction of vehicle emissions? What's the harm if we ensure less salt goes into our waterways? What's the harm? What's the harm if we improve our infrastructure to prevent it from flooding?
Can I ask, please, people in the audience, this is not a forum, this is still a formal council meeting, and we really don't support people yelling from the audience. It's disrespectful to the process, and it's disrespectful of Councillor Stone, who is speaking at the moment. That was a question to you, Peggy.
Thank you, Councillor Stone, for your question. I'd certainly like an apology for your behavior at the Monday meeting, and you're smiling and laughing at my presentation. So let's talk about the science. I have presented the science. If you actually want to do the research, you'll find the science too. If you're choosing to not look at the science, that means you don't have the best interests of this town, because out of an act of prudence, you need to prove to me that there is a climate change emergency. You need to prove to us that there's science behind this. You cannot organize this because you think you've understood a narrative that is an untrue narrative. What is the liability If you go ahead and enforce your action plan, and we've already said to you, you don't have the authority to do such a thing, it's not local, how is it going to change? If our little emissions in our 40 square miles of Huntsville, we cut down the cars, first of all, kill our economy, but second of all, what difference going to make if we're only two-thirds of the rest of the two-thirds of the world are not adopting this climate change agenda, this lie? The rest of them are going to carry on doing what they're doing. How is the town of Huntsville and our 40 square miles going to reduce emissions? This is about emissions. It's about the United Nations. I'll read you the first line.
Okay,
The
you know what,
United
Peggy,
Nations
you've
Intergovernmental
already-
Panel on Climate
Peggy,
Change.
You've already
There's
read
your
the
facts.
first line.
There's the facts, Mr. Stone.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
Happy to answer them. Are you
I'm,
afraid to ask a question?
That's
a serious
okay.
question?
Peggy, you know what? I'm not seeing any.
I
So
know.
thank you again for your input and for your participation.